Kia ora. My name's Martin Street and I'm a Senior Communication and Engagement Advisor here at Hamilton City Council. And I'd like to welcome you to our Plan Change 9 webinar. Tonight's focus will be on notable trees and will be led by Alice Morris, who is a Principal Planner here at the Council. Before I pass things over to her, a couple of quick things to get through. Firstly, the overview of tonight will be Plan Change 9 at a high level before we dive down into notable trees, what it means and how they've been identified. Following the presentation, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. To do this, we'll be using the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, and you can put those in at any stage throughout the presentation. Please note, we're not going to be monitoring the chat box, so only use the Q&A box. Also, we're not going to be able to answer questions on specific properties. This is due to the fact this is a public forum, but if you do have such questions, feel free to drop us a line at planchange@hcc.govt.nz, or you can come to one of the future drop-in sessions that we're currently just finalising. We'll share more details on those once they're done. Once they're confirmed, not done. Finally, if you do want to include your email or your name with your question, we're not going to be publishing these, so if you want more information, we can get back to you that way. So with the housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to pass you over now to Alice. Alice.
Thanks, Martin. And good evening, everyone. And thank you for tuning in on one of our 5 webinars. Now, why are we doing Plan Change 9 and what are we doing? So under the Resource Management Act, we're required to have policies and rules that protect our heritage and natural environment. We are assessing what is currently protected through our district plan and looking at the new elements that may need to be added. We're also looking at striking a balance between supporting development while also protecting and enhancing those things that help shape our city. It's been a decade since we last assessed our heritage and natural environment elements, so it's timely to do that in the current environment. What does the Plan Change 9 cover? So Plan Change 9 has 5 elements. And those elements are shown there on your screen: built heritage, significant natural areas, archaeological sites, historic heritage areas, and notable trees. The webinar last night was significant natural areas. Last week we held the webinars for built heritage and historic heritage areas. Tonight, as you're aware, is notable trees, and tomorrow night is archaeological sites. Our district plan currently includes 121 built structures, 5 special character areas, approximately 500 notable trees, 59 significant natural areas, and 52 archaeological sites. So when we look at notable trees, why are we protecting particular trees? So Hamilton is a well-treed city, especially in our older areas. The protection of trees is one of the ways to help ensure that the retention of these mature specimens within our environment does occur. We have individual trees or groups of trees that are located on either public or private land. The word notable is due to their link to the community, scientific importance, species type, age, and or the contribution they make to the city. Presently in our operative district plan, we call them significant trees. The word is to be changed to notable to sort of just elevate in terms of what our national planning standards are going to require us to call them in the future. So we're taking that step now. We currently have approximately 500 trees that are scheduled in the district plan. And these are mature or unique trees that what we want to ensure they are protected in terms of their health, form, and ultimately their existence. Some of these trees have links to the past, such as the oak trees around Steele Park. And then there are other mature forms or good examples of specimens throughout our city. In terms of the identification and assessment under Plan Change 9, we have listed the help of the experts from Arbor Lab Limited, and they have reassessed the existing scheduled trees using the standard tree evaluation method, or known colloquially as the STEM method, to reassess all the current trees. We've also asked them to look at other notable trees that are within our public realm, such as our street trees and trees on reserves. Now, the STEM method is an example used quite extensively through by other councils throughout the New Zealand, and we are using that so that it is an easier method to apply in terms of looking at consistency approach. Presently, the district plan, the trees were assessed using the Royal New Zealand Institute of Horticultural method, and the last time they were reassessed was 2012. So the STEM score sheets for each tree on private property are available on request from the website. In addition, in terms of the reassessment, as I said, that has resulted in approximately 430 scheduled trees remaining on the existing list. 70 have been removed from the list, and that is because they have either physically been removed from their sites, or with the reassessment, they do not meet the score threshold for protection. Now, through the assessment of street trees and reserve trees, we have identified an additional 1,031 trees, as I said before, all on public property. And we're proposing to list those in the district plan as well. So what is proposed is shown on these two maps. So on the left-hand side is, and it might be a bit hard to see, but on the left-hand side is our present scheduled trees identified by the green dots. And on the right-hand side are the scheduled trees as reassessed, plus the trees that I propose to be identified on either reserves or street trees. And you'll note that the linear dots represent a lot of mature trees in our older area of Hamilton East and Claudelands. So what's specifically proposed? So the key thing, key take home is that the district plan presently protects scheduled trees and has a number of rules with regards to what you can do to a scheduled tree or what you can do around a scheduled tree. We're not proposing to change those rules. What we are proposing is that we make greater clarification of the application of those rules and how those rules and what it means in terms of what works you can do if you require resource consent or for permitted activities. So on the screen, what we're showing is under the operative district plan, which is referred to as the ODP, we presently call what traditionally would have been the drip line is called the root protection zone. Now, as you see on the left-hand side, there is a tiny green dot, which Martin is circling at the moment. That is identifying on the planning maps the notable tree and its location. The operative district plan talks about works within a root protection zone, and it requires a person who's wanting to do works within that zone to calculate out what that root protection zone is, which is quite an involved calculation, and we have had feedback with regards to that that is not that easy to calculate, and it really requires a lot of technical expertise as well. So what we have done is we have now proposed to flip the naming so that it's refreshed. It's called the protected root zone under Plan Change 9, and we've done the work with regards to the calculation. So whilst Arbor Lab were out doing all the reassessments, they also did the calculation of every tree to identify what the protected root zone is in terms of a radius from the centre of the trunk. So now through Plan Change 9, what we are proposing is to actually show that protected root zone as a dotted circle around the tree. Now, as you can see on the right hand side, that then clearly indicates which properties have to consider that notable tree, and it also takes some of the guesswork out of it as well. What does that mean? Well, as I said, the district plan presently requires consents for certain works within or to a notable tree. Those requirements haven't changed, as I said. So non-emergency works to a tree that is identified and scheduled, removal of that tree or even transplanting that tree would require a resource consent, as would pruning and maintenance of a tree that goes beyond what the standards permit. And we have set those standards with regards to the diameter of the branches that can be pruned without a resource consent, the diameter of the roots that can be pruned without a resource consent, and the amount of canopy that can be removed per calendar year. Also, what we have done is we have clarified the works within that protected root zone in terms of what works you can do in terms of earthworks, the types of materials you can place within that area, and the amounts of those materials. One of the clarities that we have outlined in the provisions is what is meant by mechanical or non-mechanical, and what is acceptable for non-mechanical versus mechanical, to try to help the protection of the tree's health whilst allowing people to still do works when necessary. What are our next steps? So we're currently working on a schedule of community events, and as Martin said, drop-in sessions for Plan Change 9, and these will be promoted as soon as confirmed. Tomorrow we are taking a report, tomorrow we go to council to seek approval for notification of Plan Change 9, and following that notification will occur in late July. All property owners that are impacted by Plan Change 9 will receive a notice of the notification explaining what the next steps are, and in terms of how they can have their say with regards to Plan Change 9. That leads us to timeframes. So we are presently in pre-notification engagement period. We, as I've said, anticipate public notification of Plan Change 9 in late July. And then once notification occurs, there's a 20-day working day period for people to make submissions. That 20 working day period is a statutory time frame set under the Resource Management Act. And that should close around about mid-July. And following formal submission period closing, we then do a summary of those submissions. There'll be calling for further submissions, and then it's expected that we will hold hearings for Plan Change 9 in the first quarter of next year, which is 2023. So Martin, I think that leads us on to questions. Thank you.
It does. Thank you, Alice. So I've had a couple come in. So the tree root protection zone comes into my property and I intend to build a fence or a new building on it. Can I do this or do I need a resource consent?
Okay, so that will depend on how you're wishing to do that work. So if you're actually putting a building within that area, yes, you would require a resource consent. If you're going to be digging fence posts, for instance, for a fence, that would not require a resource consent if you dug those holes manually by hand and not mechanical.
Cool. Sticking with the tree root protection zone, someone said, I think it's too big. Can it be reduced?
So as I said, we have had Arbor Lab actually do the calculations for each tree, and that calculation relates to the height of the tree and the trunk diameter, which is then multiplied 12 times at a height of up the trunk at a height of 1.4. So that it's quite technical. So if someone felt that the proposed root protection zone is too large, they can make a submission once the plan change is notified.
Great. Got another one here. Can I ask for a tree or trees on private land to be included in the district plan? And can these be either native or exotic? So I guess two-part question firstly. Can someone ask?
Yes, through a submission, someone can seek to have a tree added. Part of that submission would have to give some justification for why that tree should be included in the schedule. The second part of that question is it can be either native or exotic. If you have a look through the list, we sort of capture quite a lot of native and exotic. I think the key thing is the maturity of the tree, the height of the tree, and the uniqueness of the tree.
Cool. Another one here. Have the historic trees identified in the V8 documentation and the submissions been assessed, such as Old Mill Road oaks?
I would have to check that. I'm assuming, I'm not quite sure what they mean by V8, but all the trees that are presently scheduled in the district plan have been reassessed. The only trees that have been added are street and reserve trees that have either met a minimum height of 18 metres or identified by our parks team. So we would have to get back to that person, I think, Martin.
Okay, no worries. If that was your question, please feel free to throw in the comments your email address, or in the Q&A box, sorry. That actually, Alice, was actually the last question. So I take that you've done a wonderful job explaining everything, and any other question that sort of came through as you were presenting was around how can I make submissions, and I noticed you spoke to that throughout your presentation. So just want to finish up then. So thank you, Alice, for taking the time out to talk notable trees tonight, and for everyone for attending. As you alluded to and I've mentioned, we are looking at some public events, and we will be getting those out through socials and other advertising once they are confirmed. But until we meet tomorrow to discuss archaeological sites, thank you very much, and everyone have a safe evening.